What difference does it make? Nobody cares. No one cares. But let's start with this.
Welcome back. A stunning political upset this week in the race to lead America's biggest city. 33-year-old Democratic Socialist and New York State Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani is poised to win the Democratic primary for New York City, beating out former Governor Andrew Cuomo. He's now set to head to the general election, but his likely primary win is already sending shockwaves through the Democratic Party. And joining me now is Zohran Mamdani. Mr. Mamdani, welcome to Meet the Press.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. There is so much to discuss. We have to start with your remarkable victory in the primary for mayor. You're 33 years old. As I just said, you started out at close to 0% in the polls, Mr. Mamdani. You came back to topple one of the biggest names in New York politics, Andrew Cuomo. What was the secret to your success? Do you think it was your message? Do you think that voters were voting?
One of the things that I think is good, personally, is that they're asking Mamdani directly what caused his victory. The reason why I find it frustrating, or the reason why I think this is good, is because overall there's a lot of like people taking credit over what caused him to win, and these are mostly like the DC consultant class that is running their mouths and claiming that the reason why Zohran won is because his policies. It's not because of his policies, but because he actually was on board with the abundance mindset, or the reason why Zohran won is because he had a joyful campaign, or because he did social media. No, those are all, especially social media, played a big role in this. But very obviously, a major part of his victory was his policies and his massive turnout machine. Zohran Mamdani had 50,000 door knockers, dude. Are you kidding me? That's like a percentage of the overall vote. Like, that's significant. That is incredibly significant. Here is me jokingly responding to Donald. You guys met him already. Boringstein is like Zohran's cinematographer. He was you probably saw him while we were live streaming. He was in the background also filming. Representative Rua Roman says, it's not just Zohran's videos that won the primary. If you don't have a serious ground operation, you will lose, even with the most viral videos. A viral video does not make a movement. His media team is amazing, and they deserve all the flowers, and the rest matters. Donald said, going to keep hammering this home. The field operation on our campaign was the greatest since Obama 08, and if adjusted to scale, far and away the most impressive field operation in the 21st century American politics. Understand. Ladies and gentlemen, understand something. The person who is saying that is quite literally the person that is the person who's saying that is the person who should be saying, no, it was the videos. I'm the kingmaker, okay? Because he's literally responsible for half of the social media. He's responsible for the cool movies that they shot the entire campaign. And he's the one saying that's not the case. It's not just like the social media or whatever. It unironically is the turnout. It's the turnout machine that they had. And the only reason why the turnout machine was the way it was is because of the policies. Okay? You can't have a turnout machine like that. You cannot have a turnout machine like that without the policies that ton of people care about. To which I responded with, nah, it's because Zohran did joy and abundance, and also abundance. I think I'll let the big boys in mainstream media and DC consultant class handle the analysis on this one. There's no way door knocking did more for the campaign than social media. Dude, the social media guy is telling you it's the door knocking. What are you talking about? Like, this is the guy, okay? Do you understand? This is literally the guy. I'm showing you the guy who did the social media, and the guy who did the social media is saying it's not the social media, it is the incredibly impressive turnout machine. What are you talking about? Kamala Harris had a incredible social media machine. Why didn't it work? Why? Why did it not work? Do you think Kamala Harris didn't do enough social media? She did. It's because Kamala Harris did not have Kamala Harris did not have good enough policies that would push a lot of the quote unquote left, the door knockers, communities such as ours, into mobilizing for her. Okay? That's it.
Bit of both. How do you see it?
I think ultimately it was the focus on the fact that we live in the most expensive city in the United States of America. It's also the wealthiest city and the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and yet 1 in 4 New Yorkers are living in poverty. And
bro does not stop. Yeah, 18 to 44 was almost 50% of the electorate, by the way. The big question heading in the New York City race was what percentage of the electorate would be 18 to 44? Manhattan Institute had it at 24%. Marist had it at 30%. Emerson had it at 35%. The actual result was 18 to 44-year-olds were 48 to 49% of the electorate. That is the reason why all the polls were wrong, because they didn't weigh the 18 to 44 vote accordingly. 50%. How did that happen? Well, that happens when you got 50,000 door knockers. Okay, I checked this roughly against the voter file. My firm uses some noise created by birth dates and such, but 2024 G based on age right now, 18 to 24, 176,000, 25 to 29, 237,000, 60 to 64, 238,000. Target early data implies more 18 to 29 Democrats voted in the mayoral primary than the 2024 general. More 18 to 29-year-olds that are registered Democratic Party voters voted in the New York City mayoral primary than they voted in the general. The general election for the president. That's why I said Zohran Mamdani was able to actually do the Bernie method successfully, because the Bernie method was supposed to be this tremendous turnout of the youth vote, which is hilarious to say 18 to 44 is the youth vote, by the way, but it is because of how old the voters are in general. But up until like 18 to 44 as a demographic, there's a ton of numbers there. There are a ton of people there. They just don't vote. They don't vote because they have nothing to vote for. When you got a candidate that actually resembles the electorate, you have a candidate that actually has policies that the electorate wants, and he is an earnest communicator, this is what happens. Okay? Biden Defense Squad says, a big part of why I'll support Zohran going forward is because for years I've been like, well, if you guys want to win, why don't you actually go out and vote instead of just tweeting? And now that they've done that, I can't really be like, no, I didn't mean like that. I'm glad that these guys are actually realizing that this is the method. Having said that, a lot of the establishment Democrats will not do this, okay? Understand that they are spending most of their time and most of their effort currently attacking Zohran Mamdani. It is crazy. You have an incredibly unpopular tax bill that is so unpopular that it's unpopular with Republicans being pushed for by a Republican president that is also unpopular. You have mass instability, war all around the globe. None of the things that Trump ran on that he said he was going to fix, he is actually fixed. And instead of the Democrats using that as an opportunity to talk about how austerity sucks and how, these guys are basically stealing your lunch money so that the wealthy can get a tax cut, right? Instead of the Democrats using this unprecedented opportunity to really drive a wedge between the base of Republican Party's base of support and the Republican Party politicians, they're spending a decent amount of time talking about the one guy that actually went out and did the damn thing with popular economic policies and won a goddamn race in a closed Democratic Party primary against a dynastic name like Cuomo. I saw this graphic in an article earlier and thought the same. He got them damn kids to show up. This is what they voted for. Now he has to expand his coalition. I'm not arguing or fighting over the will of the people in a fair election. I also tell them, well, if you want to win, stop choosing terrible candidates. So I can't be like, how come Andrew Cuomo didn't win? I don't understand. So you're happy to throw Jewish New Yorkers under the bus when at the cost of vulnerable members of society is the Republican way? Yes, Jewish New Yorkers, the vulnerable members of society that are under attack constantly. I'm a Jew who I guarantee you has taken 100 times more anti-Semitism than you have on this app. So shut your mouth and know your place. Dark woke, baby. Dark woke. Wait, what? Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary, was asked if President Trump supports Representative Andy Ogle's call for denaturalization proceedings for Zohran Mamdani. She said, surely, if the claims are true, it's something that should be investigated. Oh, my God.
Thank you, Caroline. Does President Trump want Zohran Mamdani deported?
I haven't heard.
Haha, so funny. Haha. 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 So funny. Let's just literally deport a dude who won a Democratic primary. Like, what are we doing? What is happening right now? What the fuck is going on? Real funny, haha. Just a little Hitlerian policy making, you know. This is why Democrats need to do everything in their power right now to basically back the boy, okay? To basically back him down to the wire. This is a major contest that is an existential threat, not only to the Democratic Party as well, but also just to America in general. I don't think they understand, or perhaps they do understand, that this is an existential threat to the United States of America, and they simply don't care.
Him say that. I haven't heard him call for that. But certainly he does not want this individual to be elected. I was just speaking to him about it and his radical policies that will completely crush New York City, which is obviously a city that the president holds near and dear to his heart.
There's this Congressman, Andy Ogles. He wants the Attorney General Bondi to explore denaturalization proceedings because he thinks Mamdani could have misrepresented or concealed material support for terrorism based on rap lyrics he wrote in 2017. Does President Trump think this is a worthwhile?
This is the most psychotic angle of attack, dude. This is insanity, okay? Oh my God. They are using denaturalization for everything, okay? They are going to use immigration for everything. You make a fuss, denaturalize, okay? And now that there is no process of injunction, now that there's no power in the courts to actually put a stop to this kind of madness, they can just kind of get away with it until the Supreme Court takes it up. And what if it doesn't go all the way to the Supreme Court at all? This is literally what the Nazis did, okay? Every single thing that they're entertaining here is a test. You need to stay aware. I am telling you right now, every single person should be losing their minds over this. Guy comes in, wants free buses, okay? Wants a rent freeze. Happened before, many times over in New York, okay? And all of a sudden, wants to tax the wealthy a little bit, okay? And all of a sudden, they're like, well, we got to deport him. He's a Muslim terrorist that needs to be deported. That's where we're at right now. Understand how insane this is. All right, but let's get back to this.
The rest are seemingly trapped in a state of anxiety. And what we've seen is that this is a city that needs to be affordable for the people who build it every day. Our focus was on exactly that. And by keeping that focus on an economic agenda, we showed New Yorkers that this could be more than just a museum of what once was. It could be a living, breathing testament to possibility.
Well, let me ask you about what I was just discussing with Senator Chris Murphy. The fact that you have Leader Schumer, leaders Hakeem Jeffrey, who wrote very nice things about your victory, said you'd won a very strong campaign, have not endorsed you. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has endorsed you. Do you think the Democratic establishment is afraid of you?
I think that people are catching up to this election. This is an election that went against so much of the analysis that had been told about our party and where we needed to head to. And ultimately, what we're showing is that by putting working people first, by returning to the roots of the Democratic Party, we actually have a path out of this moment where we're facing authoritarianism in Washington, D.C.
Well, let's talk about your policies, your vision for this city. Here are some of the things you've proposed: free buses, rent-stabilized housing, a $30 minimum wage, the creation of city-owned grocery stores. It's a very long list of proposals. So let me ask you, if you were to be elected the next mayor of New York, what would your day one priority be?
The first thing is living up to these promises that I've made, because I've made them because I intend to keep them. And in a city of about 8.5 million people, close to 2.5 million New Yorkers live in rent-stabilized housing. The mayor, through a board called the Rent Guidelines Board, sets whether or not those rents increase or stay the same. The previous mayoral administration froze the rent 3 times. This one, led by Mayor Adams, increased it by 9%.
Yeah. Eric Adams increased the rent when he had every opportunity to freeze it. Okay. Now, what's really interesting about this is that now that rent freeze is a point of contention, Eric Adams, who is the most cynical charlatan of all time, has turned around and talked about potentially potentially no longer increasing rent as well. He just released literally released a statement saying, we're just going to do the minimum rent increase this time around, or something like that. Oh, here it is. Here's the statement from Eric Adams. Why I'm urging the Rent Guidelines Board to adopt the lowest increase possible while protecting the quality of housing for millions of New Yorkers who live in a rent-stabilized home. So he saw the rent freeze conversation take place and decided, you know what? We're just going to do the minimum amount. We're going to still increase it, but just by a minimum amount. One of the largest cost of kitchen table issues kitchen tables each month is rent. Dude, what is going on, dude? Why can't I delete the deleted messages? I'm so goddamn annoyed. How do I? Okay. All right, let's get to it. Let's get back to it. Okay.
So the first thing that I would do is start to constitute a board that votes in reflection of reality. And the reality I'm speaking of is that the median household income of those tenants is $60,000 a year. The landlords of those units have seen their profits increase by 12%. It's time for relief for working class New Yorkers.
Okay, well, of course, the big question is, how are you going to pay for it? You've proposed increasing taxes on wealthier New Yorkers. The Democratic governor, though, of your state, Kathy Hochul, says she's not going to support increasing taxes in order to get it across the finish line. I want to let you take a listen to a little bit of what she had to say recently and respond on the other side. Here she is.
I'm not raising taxes on people at a time when affordability is the big issue. I'm actually cutting middle class taxes.
Even on the wealthy.
I don't want to lose any more people to go to Palm Beach. We've lost.
Oh my God, dude. Come on. Have some backbone. Have some goddamn backbone, dude. Of course, she doesn't.
Enough.
How are you going to raise taxes if you can't get Democrats to support it?
So I think what we've shown over the last 8 months is our ability to take that which is considered a non-starter and make it seem inevitable. We've shown that with this campaign, and ultimately we're...
Once again, here are the takes that you can immediately deploy here. Are you ready for this? This is the only aspect of his policies on his campaign that requires Albany to play ball. Okay? Having said that, however, this has been a tremendously successful ballot measure in a state like Massachusetts, in Boston. Okay? It's been spearheaded by Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston, and this was a ballot measure that passed, a millionaire's tax directly. It was a ballot measure that passed in the state of Massachusetts. So this is a profoundly popular provision in blue states that will yield billions of dollars into the state coffers so that we can fund some of these initiatives that are helpful, that will clean up the streets of New York, that will make New York a more livable place. Okay? Yeah, in Massachusetts, the tax increase for the millionaire's tax was 4%. Zohran wants half of that, 2%. And this was a profoundly popular policy in Massachusetts. Do you understand? So he can literally point to another comparable state and another comparable city as far as the mobilization behind this policy.
We're seeing that our vision to tax the top 1% of New Yorkers, these are New Yorkers who make $1 million a year or more.
Yeah, you can also point to the fact that there's only like 34,000 of them in New York. We're not talking about, there's like what? 14 million people. What's the population in New York? Let's see. 8.25 million in New York population, greater metro area. The population of New York, 23 million. Okay. 23 million in the New York metropolitan area, New York City in particular, 8 million. The number of millionaires that he is talking about is like the number of people that would be affected by this tax rate. Okay, the number of people that would be affected by this tax rate is literally 34,000. 34,000.
And our proposal is to just tax them by 2% additional, is something that has broad support and will continue to increase that support over the next few months and years.
So you think you're going to be able to twist Governor Hochul's arm and get...
No, the New York metropolitan area is obviously 31 counties, which is New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, so it doesn't count. New Jersey and Connecticut won't count. But I'm saying that, like, New York City is 8 million. And this is out of 8 million people, it is 34,000 people that he's talking about that would be impacted by this tax.
Get her to support raising taxes. I mean, what about the fact that she says she's concerned New Yorkers might leave? They might go to Florida.
I think it's time for a leadership that doesn't twist arms, but rather builds partnership. And I'm looking forward to having that with the governor, because ultimately my policies, my vision, it's driven by an assessment of what's actually happening. The Fiscal Policy Institute found that the top 1% of New Yorkers leave at 1/4 the rate of other income groups. And when they do leave,
the AI response from hold on. One out of every Bloomberg has an article on this. The number that they have is like 34,000, I think, that they said would be impacted by this tax. But Bloomberg is saying it's 300,000. But I don't think that's the case. I think this means like people that are working in New York in the greater metropolitan area. That number is probably around 350,000. But I trust Zohran's numbers more than I do this, because there's a little bit of a confusion here. Oh, $1 million in income. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, because he's talking about $1 million in income. Yeah, people with net worths over $1 million is entirely different than someone who makes $1 million in income a year. Yes. Okay, that makes sense. That's where the confusion is coming from. I don't understand it. Florida is a red state. If rich people left to Florida, wouldn't rich people make Florida great? Great question. The answer is no. 1 million isn't much in New York City, but regardless, a lot compared to other. 1 million is a lot, though, to be honest, in Manhattan. $1 million a year? $1 million in income a year is a lot everywhere on the planet. There is not a single place on this entire earth that $1 million a year in income is not a lot. Anyway, let's continue.
It's actually to other states considered high tax, New Jersey, California. So it's not fiscal policy, it's quality of life. And ultimately, the reason I want to increase these taxes on the top 1%, the most profitable corporations, is to increase quality of life for everyone, including those who are going to be taxed.
Here's how the Washington Post editorial board wrote about your proposals. They say
oh my God, this is so cooked.
Massive minimum wage would depress low-skilled employment. His rent freeze would reduce the housing supply and decrease its quality. Cutting bus fares would leave a transit funding hole that, unless somehow filled, would erode service. Meanwhile, the grocery business operates on thin margins, and his plan for city-run stores would probably lead...
Wow, I can't believe Jeff Bezos' newspaper that endorsed Donald Trump, by the way, at the direction of Jeff Bezos, unironically. Like the post Jeff Bezos Trump endorsement, Washington Post's editorial board is against a socialist who is advocating for the most modest, the most doable increase in social safety nets. Color me surprised. Oh boy, am I shocked. Wow, shocked, I tell you. This is the most shocking thing. I can't believe the e-commerce grocery store magnate wrote in his newspaper that a government competitor to his major profit-seeking sector would be bad. The margins are so thin. Yeah, they endorsed no one. Remember, the board was going to endorse Kamala, but Bezos stopped it. Yeah, that's why I'm saying it's a de facto endorsement of Donald Trump. Jeff Bezos personally stopped the Washington Post editorial board from endorsing Kamala Harris and said, oh, we don't do that. We're not in that business anymore, which is an endorsement of Donald Trump. And he he obviously has a personal investment in seeing any kind of initiative of government-owned grocery stores failing, because obviously that would be a tremendous market competitor if implemented successfully all around the country. Jeff Bezos does not want that.
Poor service and shortages. Mr. Mamdani, are your proposals going to hurt the very people you're trying to help?
Not at all. There have been many in editorial board who have had concerns, and what we've shown is that more than 400,000 New Yorkers are excited about this vision. And the reason they're excited about it is one that is in line with the scale of the crisis in this city. I mean, we are talking about our tax base.
Thin margins, bro. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, man. Then I guess the government should own all the grocery stores then. Like, what is the argument here? Oh, dude, our margins are so thin. Yeah, you know who else has really thin margins, dude? Insurance, okay? First of all, thin margins is made up, okay? It's made up. It's made up. The idea that like, oh, our margins are so thin. Okay, then don't use so much of the revenue coming in on a whole deal of ridiculous, whether it be executive pay, like executive payout packages, stock buybacks, things of that nature. Okay. There are so many things that companies do in terms of lobbying expenditures and all this other stuff that they could actually dial back from, but they don't. Right? Bro, I'm being sarcastic. Okay. They don't do that. They want it. You are a cancer to the Democratic Party. I like that we're watching the most, like, currently one of the most dynamic candidates, a candidate that I endorsed and backed, that is making national news because of his, again, modest social democratic provisions. And this guy's like, nah, you're a cancer to the Democratic Party. Brother, the Democratic Party itself has maximum cancer right now, okay? This is the chemotherapy to the Democratic Party, and there's a bunch of dumb liberals in here who still try to like hold on to the idea that like, no, we have to do third way neoliberalism. Brother, you are not a Democratic Party consultant. You're not getting paid by them. So why are you running defense for them? I don't understand. You're a voter. You are a citizen. You are not seeing any of the benefits. So why the are you advocating for it? It doesn't make any sense. You're advocating for it like you're Kristen Gillibrand. You're not Kristen Gillibrand. It doesn't make sense. There's never been, like, I understand why you would rise super hard for your local team, right? Maybe you grew up watching the games with your dad. Maybe you own the merch. You think you have like a stake in your team winning, okay? But I don't understand how people apply this to the Democratic Party when you are so clearly not a part of the team, brother. You are not. Now you got some restructuring going on in the Democratic Party, finally, okay? Because a person has been successful. A person with populist messaging has become successful. And there are still naysayers out here in my chat being like, nah, dude, you're a cancer. It's because the other choice is the Republican Party. What do you mean? Okay, this is how you win this is how you defeat the Republican Party. You understand? So anyone that looks at this and goes, nah, the guy who mobilized the youth after Democrats cried and complained about how we've lost touch with the youth, how we've lost touch with all these different demographics, he's actually bad. He's actually what's wrong with the Dems. We can't have this. We can't allow this to happen. It's so crazy to me. I get why DNC consultants would say that, because their job security relies on actively undermining this kind of populist momentum. Yeah, if your football team has been getting its ass kicked for the past 2 decades, you don't get upset when they draft a star quarterback that's going to shake up the team. Them should at least be a proper team fan. Exactly. No, I'm on board with electing progressives. You know that. I'm just saying people have no choice in the stupid system. We need more people like them. Exactly. See, Lib Drive is correct. That is the real liberal mindset here. The real liberal mindset here is to look at this mass mobilization and mass momentum happening with a progressive candidate, with a socialist candidate, and goes, no, we need more of this, actually. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it happen in front of my eyes. We were wrong that to have this like weird, restrained attitude and consistent advocacy against these kinds of candidates.
Growing smaller and smaller each day, with New Yorkers leaving to New Jersey, to Pennsylvania, to Connecticut. If we do not meet this moment, we will lose this city. And our proposals are ones that are thought out. They are ones that are also clearly going to be funded by these revenue streams. I'll give you an example. When we talk about grocery stores, I've put forward a proposal for a pilot of one grocery store in each borough. These are 5 grocery stores that would cost $60 million in a city budget of more than $113 billion. And ultimately, the reason that we are so excited by them is we've seen that they've worked in Kansas. We've seen that when a feasibility study was done in Chicago, it was shown to be something that was not only feasible, but pressing and urgent in an urban setting. And finally, it costs less than half of what the city's already set to spend on subsidizing corporate supermarkets without any guarantee of cheaper prices, any guarantee of collective bargaining agreements, or that they accept SNAP or WIC.
Well, you take me to my next question about grocery stores. Some executives, including one of the top grocery stores owners, Billionaires, threatening to shut down his supermarket in the
Great. That's amazing. That means the city can take over these grocery store chains that I guess are about to close down. Go ahead, make my day. You know what I mean? We'll take it.
in the city. John Castamatidis, who runs Gristedes grocery chain. You're probably very
Yeah, the Gristedes grocery chain, as far as I understand, is like already at the brink of insolvency too. What is the name of it? Gristedes Supermarket. Gristedes. Castamatidis considers buying embattled rival grocery chain. John Castamatidis is still carrying a torch for rival grocer Fairway Market, the Post has learned. Castamatidis, who owns Gristedes Supermarket, has had recent informal discussions with Fairway owner GSO Capital Partners about buying the embattled chain, he told the Post. This was in 2017, okay? They wanted to buy another rival grocery chain and expand their operation, and now they're talking about leaving New York City. They are not doing that, okay? They are not doing that. By the way, the embattled rival grocery chain, Fairway Market, has had numerous bankruptcies at this point. They've had numerous bankruptcies since then. 2017 is when they wanted to buy it. In 2020, they also were bankrupt, the rival grocery chain that they're talking about. In the wake of Fairway's bankruptcy, there's been one looming figure making a mess out of grocery stores, private equity. Clean up on aisle 11. Private equity's rolling grocery store bankruptcies. Okay? They bankrupt almost because they can't do business margins, by the way. No, the reason why they get almost bankrupt or on the verge of insolvency is because they are operating with business mindset. They want to make money. There's also tremendous competition from the likes of Amazon. State-run grocery stores would not have the same exact issues because they're not supposed to be run with the profit incentive in mind. We put out feelers that we had interest before they went bankrupt and after, Castamatidis told the Post. I've been in the food business for 50 years. Yeah, this is him. John Castamatidis. Like, the reason why Zohran wants to have potentially grocery state-run grocery stores is quite literally because he's making the argument that we shouldn't be at the mercy of profit seekers, man.
very familiar with him. He said this on Election Day, quote, "If the city of New York is going socialist, I will definitely close or sell or move or franchise the Gristedes locations." In order to run New York City successfully as mayor, do you not need the support of a billionaire businessman like John Castamatidis?
I don't know if I need his support specifically.
I actually haven't figured out why they, not to give him more talking points, but the real talking point that they should be slamming is that market competition will eviscerate. State-run grocery stores would create market competition that is impossible to contend with and eviscerate mom and pop shops. That's the real meta. That's what they should be saying, okay? Not to give the billionaire psychopaths more talking points, but that is unironically what they should be saying at a time when there's unprecedented competition coming from monopolists like Amazon, okay? We're already having a hard time dealing with we're already having a hard time keeping these grocery stores open. And then this guy wants to create additional pressure to lower wages and lower prices. But even if we were to be able to carry on with our business, the mom and pop shops will definitely close down, something like that.
But I want to make clear that my vision for this city is a vision for every single New Yorker, including business leaders across the city. And the reason I say that is that my proposals, even the ones to increase the top corporate tax rate of New York to match that of New Jersey, are ones that would also benefit those business leaders. Because when I have
always given free game, you would be a profitable and effective grifter. I know. Sometimes I like to give game out for free just so people know that I got that dog in me, okay? I could so easily be a right-wing grifter. I could be the best right-wing grifter, okay? Now do the counterpoint to that. The counterpoint to that is that mom and pop shops have already been eviscerated by the monopolists, and this actually drives down prices for the monopolists, and that's precisely why they're using the supposed mom and pop shop that doesn't exist anymore in the state of New York by holding the carcass of mom and pop shops in New York to make a counterpoint when it doesn't even exist due to the monopolist franchises that have overtaken the entire city and create food deserts. And it's at the mercy of venture capital and people's profit incentives. People's food, people's access to food should not be dictated by some faceless, lifeless corporate entity that is simply just trying to make additional money off of purchasing a bunch of these stores and then immediately bankrupting them so that some hedge fund manager can turn profit year over year. The response is this: it's 5 grocery stores in this.
Some of the things I've heard that are part of your platform are rent freeze.
Yep.
200,000 new affordable homes to build.
There we go.
$30 minimum wage by 2030. Free buses. And then city-owned grocery stores. I'm just wondering, because obviously, like, politicians are liars. So
True.
How can we trust that these things are achievable?
So these are all things that are a question of political will. Because most politicians will try and tell us that anytime you want to stand up for working class people, it's unrealistic. And when we're talking about a rent freeze, Bill de Blasio did that 3 times. There's precedence for that. When we're talking about city-run grocery stores, that pilot program, which would guarantee lower prices for milk, for eggs, for bread, for the staples of day-to-day life, would cost $60 million. The city is currently set to spend more than $140 million to give it to corporate supermarkets. So this would be a fraction of what we're already set to spend. When we're talking about free buses and universal childcare, that is something that we could pay for entirely by raising New York State's corporate tax rate to match the socialist utopia of New Jersey. So that's 7.25% here to 11.5% there. 200,000 affordable homes. We can pay for this by municipal bonding. We can pay for this by using vouchers that landlords are rejecting for New Yorkers that are already approved. We can pay for this by using vacant city lots that we have. And we're already paying for this in some way because our refusal to build actually affordable housing, like for a family of 4 making $72K a year, for a low-income senior, for one of the 100,000 New Yorkers living in shelters, it is pushing working class people outside of the city. It is pushing them into tax bases of New Jersey and Pennsylvania. We need to stop doing that and actually keep people in the city they call.
Yeah. And if it fails, then it's $60 million, which is a blip. $60 million gets lost to the nephew of some prominent politician that has a private contract that they got through corruption in the state of New York and in the city of New York with regular frequency. There's already a living, breathing example of this happening in other states anyway. And this is so funny. What will happen is empty shelves due to a rise in demand in Zohran's popularity. In normal market conditions, this will lead to a raise the price according to demand. However, because a government store doesn't operate in a market environment and puts prices below market value, the stores will quickly run out of stock, and empty shelves and long lines will ensue. This happens in command economies all the time. I study economics in uni, by the way. Okay, so it'll be successful, is what you're saying. It'll be incredibly successful, and people will purchase it. It's not like it's going to literally eviscerate the existing grocery store chains. It's simply going to work as intended. You didn't even describe why this would be bad. You did not even describe why this would collapse anything. What you described is poor people will have easier access to food. That's what you described as a bad thing, because that is the outcome of what you're talking about. The outcome of what you're talking about is people in these neighborhoods will be able to get cheaper groceries. Okay? Then the people with money will go elsewhere, will be fed up and stop going and clogging it up for the people who need it. There are major advantages to an enterprise that is not run. There are major advantages to an enterprise that's not run at the behest of the profit motive. Those who are quick enough will get the food. Others, the majority, will not. Dude, first of all, the argument that you're making, unironically, is an argument to make all grocery stores state-run, for the record. You understand that, right? So that this issue does not exist. Because there are a shit ton of other grocery stores that people will go and get their goods from. It's just the prices will be higher. Okay? So unless you're unless you're advocating for a command economy where all of the grocery stores are run by the state, I don't know why you're even bringing this up, because this doesn't actually destroy the rest of the grocery stores in the region. Others will start getting even more priced out. How? You're not making an argument. Even using like Econ 101 terms, you're not making an argument as to how the others will start getting more priced out. Here, I'll make the argument for you. Because these bargain bin prices that are impossible to compete against, it will actually force other grocery stores that are privately owned to lower their prices in order to be competitive. Okay? That's the argument you're supposed to make. You're not even making that argument. You're just saying, oh, the others will start getting even more priced out. And then they'll raise their prices for no reason. Like, what are you talking about? Also, you're making it seem as though the state-run grocery stores don't exist. The commissary structure in the United States military already exists. It's a thing that works, okay? Last I checked, the real thing that prices out people, or the real thing that eviscerates and guts local grocery stores, mom and pop shops, is not actually government-run grocery stores. It's actually Walmart, okay? This, unironically, is a way to try and combat against Walmart. It's a way to try and combat against the massive grocery stores. The difference between a state-run enterprise like this as opposed to Walmart, however, is that Walmart comes in with much cheaper prices. Walmart also will hire a bunch of people. It's more efficient. And then it will suck up the entire demand in the region. And then once it's no longer profitable, as they have done so in West Virginia, for example, they'll off. Do you understand? And then now you have an area where there's no business anymore. Now you've created a food desert. State-run enterprises, on the other hand, have a duty to offer these things, to offer these goods, to offer these commodities to their citizens, and therefore will not go away. If what you're saying was true, then food banks would destroy the grocery stores. So Walmart is better in real competition than the mom and pop shops, I guess. What? Walmart is better in terms of competing against mom and pop shops? Yes, just like Amazon is better than all of the other alternatives, and they are the reason why these chain stores have become monopolies. Walmart is the reason why you don't have local mom and pop shops anymore. Yes. The issue, however, is that when Walmart, with its low profit margins, decides, and its heavy government subsidies, by the way, because Walmart is one of the most subsidized enterprises, perhaps around the world, that is privately owned and not owned by the government directly. Okay, when Walmart, even after all of that, when Walmart decides I'm not making enough money, they just drop it. They just end that chain. They end their franchise. They end their operations in the region, leaving that region with no alternative. The job of the government is to uphold free market competition in a civil way. No, it's not. You are a neoliberal without even realizing that you are a neoliberal. This mentality is precisely the reason why the government does subsidize Walmart. This is the outcome. The job of the government is to uphold free competition. Okay? And that's precisely what's going on. The government has been upholding free competition And this is the outcome. The outcome is Walmart. Everything inevitably turns into a monopoly, okay? Or if it's not a monopoly, it's at the very least an oligopoly, which creates an environment where price fixing is the norm through price leadership, which is the legal method of price fixing. Price fixing is illegal. Price leadership is very legal. When you have tremendous corporate consolidation, you create an environment that's ripe for price leadership. Price leadership, when you're at the point of the consumer, is the same as price fixing. It doesn't matter, okay? When you are going out and purchasing eggs and eggs and milk, you don't think, well, at least this was done through the legal route of price leadership. So if monopolies are going to happen, I would rather have the interests of the population in mind rather than the interests of a couple faceless, lifeless capital owners in mind. You are arguing about a fantasy while simultaneously saying we need candidates to do that. And then you're literally getting mad at the one candidate who is trying to do that and turning around and saying, no, not like this. Subsidizing one side but not the other is not fair competition. And that is what's happening right now and is not good. But socialism will lead to deficit. That's not the way out. Should be anti-monopoly. Brother, there is no planet. Your worldview is inevitably distorted, okay? Because capitalism inevitably yields monopoly. Every single company's ultimate goal is to become a market leader. There is Scandinavia. Oh my God. Oh my God. Why are Econ 101 guys so oblivious? Nordic socialism is realer than you think. When policy commentators talk about Nordic economies, they tend to focus on their comprehensive welfare states, and for good reason. Denmark, Finland, Norway, and Sweden are home to some of the most generous welfare systems in the world. Each has efficient single-payer healthcare system, free college, long parental leave, heavily subsidized childcare, and many other social benefits too numerous to list here. What is this? Public grocery stores. Oh yeah, there was one in Florida. This is also before we factor in that there is a monopoly, state-run monopoly on liquor stores, both I believe in Kansas and other states in the country, but also even in Scandinavian nations as well. Outsized attention they receive can sometimes lead the commentators in the wrong conclusions about peculiars of Pennsylvania too and Utah. The common thread to these mistaken conclusions aside from the desired labor market, this is not true. In addition to large welfare states and high tax levels, Nordic economies are also home to large public sectors, strong job protections, and labor markets governed by centralized union contracts. Around 1 in 3 workers in Denmark and Norway are employed by the government. Protections against termination by employers are much stronger in Nordic countries. Centrally bargained union contracts establish the work rules and pay scales for the vast majority of Nordic workers. These labor market characteristics are hardly neoliberal or quasi-libertarian, at least if we stick to the typical definitions of those terms. The neoliberal tendency, as exemplified by most recently by France's Emmanuel Macron, is to cut public sector jobs, reduce job protections, and push for local rather than centralized labor agreements. For the U.S. labor market to become more like the Nordics, it would have to move in the opposite direction on all those fronts. State ownership, even more interesting than Nordic labor market, is institutions is Nordic state ownership. Collective ownership over capital is the hallmark of that old school socialism that is supposed to have been entirely discredited. And yet, such public ownership figures prominently in the present day in Norway and Finland, and has had a role in the other 2 Nordic countries as well, especially in Sweden, where the government embarked upon a now defunct plan to socialize the whole of the Swedish industry into wage earner funds just a few decades ago. The governments in Norway and Finland own financial assets equal to 330% and 130% of each country's respective GDP. In the U.S., the same figure is just 26%. Much of this money is tied up in diversified wealth funds, which some would object to as not counting as real state ownership. I disagree with that claim, as that wealth funds are not really state ownership, but the observation that Nordic countries feature high levels of state ownership does not turn upon this quibble. State-owned enterprises, defined as commercial enterprises in which the state has a controlling stake or a large minority stake, are also far more prevalent in Nordic countries. There are, all of these things, this is from 2017, and one of the biggest problems in Scandinavian countries is that this is also going away. This is the problem with social democracies in general. Capital interests inevitably overtake all of these state-owned enterprises and turn them into for-profit privatized entities. All of these countries are privatizing at an alarming rate. And because they're privatizing at an alarming rate, a lot of the previously well-run public institutions, state-owned enterprises, are no longer offering the same quality of service. This is the problem with social democracies, that a Thatcherite a Thatcherite move could inevitably move in the direction of gutting these social safety nets that many people took for granted. This obviously leads to people feeling animosity, anxiety, anger, resentment over their material conditions worsening. And when that happens, you have volatility. And that volatility is redirected back to vulnerable populations such as migrants or refugees in these countries. The notion that, well, more brown people started arriving, and that's the reason why my state-funded healthcare doesn't work as well as it used to.
Buses are fast and free. Minimum wage is literally $30 an hour, and all of their public schools are powered by renewable energy. They have these vibrant green spaces and these resilience hubs that provide all of these resources and safe spaces during emergencies. Oh, and every kid under 5 has access to free universal childcare. You can shop at these city-funded grocery stores that focus on keeping prices low instead of making a profit. So you buy groceries at wholesale prices. Eggs aren't $13 anymore. Okay, last thing. There's a rent freeze across the entire city.
Sounds like a fantasy, right? But New York, I'm talking about us. We have the opportunity to turn that fantasy into a reality for all.
I have a hardcore capitalist cousin in California just nutso about Mamdani over in New York. How do I shut him the fuck? As an assemblyman, I think he tried to introduce new free bus routes in New York City and now had a very mixed reception and was discontinued. That's literally not true. He did a free bus pilot program that was so popular in its implement. That is the exact opposite. Why are you making shit up? You are just saying the opposite of the truth now. It literally not only worked, but it was also incredibly successful. Anyway, back to Zohran. How do you think empty shelves and overcrowded buses will benefit the popularity of his candidacy? Overcrowded buses and empty shelves. Okay, man, don't worry about it, okay? Then don't worry about it. Overcrowded buses, he said. Dude, the average econ 101 understander turns into this like rabid sociopath the moment that there is like modest social democratic reforms that might be imminent. And it's ironic because then they will, as a defensive mechanism, turn around and point to the modest social democratic reforms that exist in other countries while simultaneously stopping us from getting it. Yeah, what if the people are too well fed? What if the buses are working? That would be terrible. You know that dumbass would have been against the interstate highway system under Eisenhower, improving infrastructure and food access. Like, yeah, those farmers and all those businesses who can now work or show up on time will certainly complain. Yeah, they don't understand that there are always spoilers every step of the way. There's never been a moment in American history where someone just came out and was like, I'm going to do this thing. And then everyone was like, we love it. FDR almost got assassinated, dog. We're still eating off of the New Deal to this day. The fact that we even have an infrastructure is thankfully because of his initiatives. And our infrastructure is crippling, but luckily the skeletons of it still remain because they did that shit. And at the time, business owners wanted to kill him for wanting to do that shit. Okay?
Conversations with them. What I also hear is the just how expensive this city is preventing them from attracting and retaining the talent they need to grow their business. And ultimately, I'm looking forward to having those meetings, having those sit downs to make clear why this vision would benefit all.
We went on your website and realized there's a policy proposal that says your plan, and I'm going to quote it for folks, is to shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. Explain why you are bringing race into your tax proposal.
Oh my God.
That is just a description of what we see right now. It's not driven by race. It's more of an assessment of what neighborhoods are being undertaxed versus overtaxed. We've seen time and again that this is a property tax system that is inequitable. It's one that actually Eric Adams ran on saying that he would change in the first 100 days. He's since sought to defend it and lost at every juncture in court.
And I understand you're saying we're simply describing the types of neighborhoods that would see these increase in taxes. And yet by invoking race, do you run the risk of potential?
Oh God, I hate this. Just be like, listen, this has nothing to do with race. Okay. It has nothing to do with race. No part of his campaign is actually advocated for like racial division or racial tension. It is just the demographic makeup of the areas that are wealthier. That's it. And he did do that. He already said this. He already said that, but it doesn't matter. She's like, nope, don't care. I'm going to keep hammering cynically against you.
actually alienating key constituents.
I think I'm just naming things as they are. And
Also, white people voted for him. Yo, Zohran, don't back down. Tell her how white people love you, okay? That's right, white men. White men powered his candidacy, okay? Be like, listen, clearly they don't give a because they're not living in the richer and whiter neighborhoods, it seems, okay? That's right. Just talk to them. Tell them how it is.
And ultimately, the thing that motivates me in this is to create a system of fairness. It is not to work backwards from a racial assessment of neighborhoods or our city. Rather, it's to ensure that we actually have an equal playing field. And right now, what we see with the property tax system is one that is overtaxing a number of New Yorkers and undertaxing.
I don't think he will focus on the white base because he's trying to foray the black vote, I think. I think the black vote is not even the black vote. The black vote that we're talking about is specifically the Democratic Party, the resilient Democratic base that listens to the turnout machine. Okay, it's not even the black vote necessarily; it's the boomer vote. Okay, it's the older Democrats, it's older black folk in general, and they won't. I don't think they'll vote for anyone but the Democratic ticket. The unks and the aunties will be straight ticket Democrats. They straight ticket Democrat vote, okay? I would be shocked if they would go for Eric Adams or even Andrew Cuomo because neither is on the Dem line.
Others and an inability of political will to resolve that.
So no plans to change that language on your website?
The focus here is to actually ensure a fair property tax system, and that the use of that language is just an assessment of the neighborhood.
All right. You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward.
By the way, that's, again, perfect response and also an incredibly popular position. Let me tell you something, okay? Americans have surf mindset. They think like, oh, one day I'll be a billionaire. One day I'll be a millionaire, they say, right? But even Americans who are like, one day I'll be super rich, even they kind of understand that like this billionaire shit's gotten out of control. This doesn't mean that you're gonna, make a new system where there's no billionaires. It's not gonna happen. China has billionaires, okay? As a matter of fact, more billionaires than we do. So I think saying yes to that isn't necessarily a bad thing at all. Not. Nobody likes billionaires. Everybody understands that they contribute to tremendous income and wealth disparity in this country.
Forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
Well, let me ask you about what Donald Trump,
the lib whisperer, is making the Vox.com article heads and the media. The Mediaite people into socialists at this point. Mamdani on Trump calling him a communist. I've already started to get used to the fact that the president will talk about how I look, how I sound, where I'm from, who I am, ultimately because he wants to distract from what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for the very working people that he ran a campaign to empower that he has since betrayed. Oh, yeah, this was funny. I saw this. Dudes who make $32K a year reading this. Zohran Mamdani, I don't think that we should have billionaires. We need billionaires, every blue check mark. But I was going to be a billionaire any day now.
President of the United States has he's had a lot to say about your campaign. He called you a communist. Because he's the president, I want to give you a chance to respond directly to him. How do you respond? Are you a communist?
No, I am not. And I have already had to start to get used to the fact that the president will talk about how I look, how I sound, where I'm from, who I am, ultimately because he wants to distract from what I'm fighting for. And I'm fighting for the very working people that he ran a campaign to empower that he has since then betrayed. And when we talk about my politics,
why would black people have to vote for him, though? What do you mean have to? We're talking about a very specific demographic of voters. We're talking about older. We're talking about the boomer black vote, okay? The boomer black vote is one of the most reliable Democrat Party voting bloc out there. My speculation, my assumption is that they will go straight ticket Dem in the general race. And who's the Democratic candidate? Zohran Mamdani.
You know, I call myself a democratic socialist in many ways inspired by the words of Dr. King from decades ago, who said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, there has to be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And as income inequality has declined nationwide, it has increased in New York City. And ultimately, what we need is a city where every single person can thrive.
All right. Stay right there. We are going to take a quick break. More of our exclusive.
Don't show the TikTok Marxists this. Dude. Why would you ever in a million years care about that? Please stop, okay? Anyway, here is the Pod Johns kind of turning heel here, okay? This is impactful because I feel like a lot of the DNC consulting class does take their notes from these guys. They are very much, and they might get mad at me for saying this, but they are very much a part of the establishment. They are the establishment. So let's hear what they have to say.
Donald Trump tried to steal the last election. When he failed, fomented a violent insurrection against the Capitol. Cops were brutally assaulted. They tried to kill members of Congress and his own vice president. He then wins the election, pardons the people who violently assaulted cops. And what we've had, at least at the...
It's wild. Dude, look. No, dude, don't say still on January 6th. It is a wild thing that January 6th was successful. Okay? Come on. You don't have to be a liberal. It didn't work to actually stop the process, this otherwise symbolic like vote certification process, and then implement Donald Trump as the actual rightful leader of the throne. But the reality that he was able to do this and then not withstand significant penalties and then win the election and then turn around and pardon all of these people. It's insane that like America broadly looked at that and was like, that is the appetite I have for destroying these institutions. There's a lesson to be learned from that.
Beginning of the administration is some Democrats being like, I'll work with them where it makes sense. I'll vote for some of his nominees where they're good. And then now we're like, oh, but if it's the mayor of New York City who wants to give people free buses and rent control and has said that he doesn't know if he's going to police the term globalize the intifada, even though he doesn't use it, which is admittedly a dumb answer. But for him,
I don't think it's a dumb answer.
We're going to say absolutely not. This is very concerning. I can't do it. But for Donald fucking Trump, be like, well, I'll work with them where I can.
If you are more concerned about a Democratic socialist in City Hall than a fascist in the White House, you're not living in the right times.
At least they bring it back. Yeah, it's wild that Eric Adams won the Democratic primary in 2021 by 0.7%, and the consultant and leadership class were saying things like this about him. Interesting that when Zohran wins by 18%, they're skeptical, almost like there is an ideology underpinning their objective analysis. It's probably foolish to think a New York City mayor will successfully translate into being a national political figure, but I still think Eric Adams would be in my top 5 for who will be the next Democratic presidential nominee after Joe Biden. This was Nate Bronze. How long before Fox News unironically says this? Mamdani set to deny billionaires of their biblical homeland of Manhattan. I mean, they are kind of saying that. They're kind of saying that right now. They're implying it. And it's not just Fox News that's saying that. It's liberals that are saying that too.
Conversation with Zohran Mamdani when we come right back. Stay with us. We are back here live in New York with State Assemblyman and the presumptive Democratic nominee for mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani. Thank you so much for sticking around for more questions. Let's talk about immigration, deportation. Are you committed to keeping New York as a sanctuary city?
Absolutely, because ultimately we've seen that this is a policy that has kept New Yorkers safe for decades. It's a policy that had previously been defended by Democrats and Republicans alike until the fear-mongering of this current mayor. And it's a policy that we've seen ensures that New Yorkers can get out of the shadows and into the full life of the city that they belong to. And it's one that I will be proud to stand up for.
Well, you know, the border czar, Tom Homan, has said that he is planning to deploy ICE agents to New York worksite enforcement to essentially increase and enhance the number of ICE agents here. If that happens on your watch, how do you plan to handle it?
We have to stand up and fight back, and we haven't seen that from our current mayor, who has instead been working with the Trump administration to assist in their goal of building the single largest deportation force in American history. I mean, we saw ICE agents arrest a migrant at Federal Plaza, and then we saw NYPD officers arresting a pastor who was peacefully observing that arrest. Those days are going to come to an end when I'm the mayor. The NYPD's job is to create public safety in the city, not to assist ICE agents in their mission to attack the very fabric of this city.
I want to talk about the historic nature of your candidacy. If you were to win, you would become the first Muslim mayor of New York City. Along the way, throughout the course of this primary campaign, you have received death threats. You've received all sorts of attacks online. Congressman Andy Ogles called for you to be deported, for example, because you were born in Uganda. He also issued an Islamophobic epithet, which I am not going to repeat here. But what type of toll has this taken on you personally and on your family?
It's been difficult. It's been difficult to have to deal with the regular and repeated smears and slander upon.
By the way, we're going to step away from the Zohran Mamdani analysis in a little bit. Well, I'll ask him about Zohran Mamdani as well, but I'm going to have David Dayen on to talk about the big, beautiful bill, to talk about Zohran's victory, and to talk about the SCOTUS stuff as well.
And on the very basis of my faith. And I think what's so sad is that this is but a glimpse into what life is like for many Muslim New Yorkers and many New Yorkers of different faiths who are constantly being told that they don't belong in this city and in this country that they love. And ultimately, what continues to give me hope is that these moments are but small examples, something that goes against what so many New Yorkers actually feel. Because what we know is that this is a city for all of us. And what Tuesday night showed is that what New Yorkers want more than anything is a vision that binds us all together.
I want to ask you about an issue that has divided some New Yorkers in recent weeks. You were recently asked about the term globalize the intifada, if it makes you uncomfortable. In that moment, you did not condemn the phrase. Now, just so folks understand, it's a phrase that many people hear as a call to violence against Jews. There's been a lot of attention on this issue. So I want to give you an opportunity to respond here and now. Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the intifada?
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights. And ultimately, that's what is the foundation of so much of my politics, the belief that freedom and justice and safety are things that, to have meaning, have to be applied to all people. And that includes Israelis and Palestinians alike.
But do you actually condemn it? I think that's the question.
What difference does it make? Let's say he says no. Or let's say he says yes. He says yes, you're still going to keep bullying him and be like, well, your supporters say it. Okay. If he says no, you're going to keep bullying him and say, oh, well, don't you think it's a violent thing to say? Don't you think it's a violent thing to say? It's like, I hope he reframes the question around the humanity of Palestinians here, because that's the most prescient way to deal with this, okay? That's the most successful way to just go and be like, you want to have a conversation about how Arabic words scare people, okay? At a time when everyone in America has seen little children blown up with our taxpayer-funded weapons at a time when we should be spending all this money on fixing our roads, dealing with the homelessness crisis in American cities. Nobody cares. No one cares. It's like, stop. The violence of words is being discussed at a time when the real violence that is happening over there is only happening because of the structural violence of poverty that we have implemented in this country. We can't spend any money on ourselves because we have to spend all that money children over there.
And the outstanding issue that a number of people, both of the Jewish faith and beyond, have. Do you condemn that phase, globalize the intifada, which a lot of people hear as a call to violence against Jews?
I've heard.
Aren't they just trying to get Mamdani to accept responsibility for racist fears by asking that question? Like, the question assumes that he already agrees with it. Yes, I have the congressperson doing this, by the way. Civilized people in America don't eat like this. If you refuse to adopt Western customs, go back to the third world, says Congressman Brandon Gill. This is some real freak shit, dude. Actually some freak.
From many Jewish New Yorkers who have shared their concerns.
Wait, he's married to an Indian lady, I'm pretty sure. Brandon Gill is. But I don't even know if I'm sure there's certain Indian cultures that will eat like certain foods with their hands. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't understand why this is a big deal. Who gives a His father-in-law. Wait, Dinesh D'Souza's daughter? He's married to Dinesh D'Souza's daughter? First of all, every culture has hand food, okay? Every culture. How do you eat a hamburger, dumbass? How do you eat a pizza? How do you eat a taco? Okay, you eat it with your hands. The only difference in this circumstance is that this is like food that Westerners eat without their hands. They eat it with the utensils. That's the only reason why people are freaking out about it, okay? Yeah, things are going so well for the anti-Mamdani camp that they're now resorting to criticizing the way he eats food. Zohran should go eat pizza with a fork and knife while Subway serving just to piss everyone off. It's so funny that Zohran clearly uses cutlery to eat food all the time to the point of using it to eat a burrito on the Subway, but he eats with his hands on camera like the costume performance thing for white people to find him exotic. This is unironically not even for white people to find him exotic, you donkey. Oh my God. Every single president has eaten with their hands, and the average American is an overweight slob and is proud. Be quiet. Latinx. Latinx. Hit him with the Latinx. Anybody who eats with their hands like this should be barred from ever being allowed in American politics. Whoever said he's married to Dinesh D'Souza's daughter is fucking wrong. What the daughter is the leader for women for Trump and Mamdani. Wait, what? No, dude. What are you talking about? No, they said the Texas congressman Brandon Gill is married to Dinesh D'Souza's daughter. They're literally right. Danielle D'Souza. The GOAT Normal Finkelstein on how Zohran should handle these ghouls. Norman Finkelstein, who canvassed for Zohran Mamdani, gives advice on how to deal with Zionist smears, drawing on the experience with Corbyn, and explains how Zionists are deploying a strategy to destroy him from the outside or co-opt him from within. Don't give him an inch. Yeah, I mean, I already covered this. Yeah, Bill de Blasio was skewered alive for eating a pizza with a fork. None of this shit matters, okay? I can't even believe we're entertaining this. God,
especially in light of the horrific attacks that we saw in Washington, D.C. and in Boulder, Colorado, about this moment of anti-Semitism in our country and in our city. And I've heard those fears and I've had those conversations, and ultimately they are part and parcel of why in my campaign I've put forward a commitment to increase funding for anti-hate crime programming by 800%. I don't believe that the role of the mayor is to police speech in the manner especially of that of Donald Trump, who has put one New Yorker in jail who's just returned to his family, Mahmoud Khalil, for that very supposed crime of speech.
This is a great way to restructure the conversation in a way that like appeals to liberals as well. He's basically politely saying, why are you doing the same thing that Trump is doing? To me, a Democrat. Why are you at NBC News, a liberal media outlet, doing the same thing that Donald Trump is doing? Are you not a Democrat? Are you not a liberal? Do you not care about liberal values? It's a good deflection mechanism, in my opinion.
Ultimately, what I think I need to show is the ability to not only talk about something, but to tackle it and to make clear that there's no room for anti-Semitism in this city. We have to root out that bigotry, and ultimately we do that through the actions, and that is the mayor I will be, one that protects Jewish New Yorkers and lives up to that commitment through the work that I do.
But quickly, for the people who care about the language and who feel really concerned by that phrase, why not just condemn it?
My concern is to start to walk down the line of language and making clear what language I believe is permissible or impermissible takes me into a place similar to that of the president who is looking to do those very kinds of things, putting people in jail for writing an op-ed, putting them in jail for protesting. Ultimately, it's not language that I use. It's
like I said, he doesn't pivot back to the real issue, in my opinion, but I mean, it's still fine. It's a good deflection. But like, I think what would even serve him better is why this question is being directed in his, this question is being directed at him. Number one, because this is like a racist fear. He has made his position known, but then again, that might come across as like too angry. but then also redirect the conversation, steer the conversation back to like what's happening in Gaza, and also how we as American citizens are actually understandably disturbed and should be even more disturbed because it's happening with our tax dollars instead of our tax dollars going to help us. Our tax dollars are going over there to Israel to people. People are very obviously aware of this. People are very obviously disturbed by this, and language policing and tone policing of this sort at a time when like 80% of the Democratic Party's base of support understands what's going on is very silly.
Language I understand there are concerns about, and what I will do is showcase my vision for the city through my words and my actions.
Let me ask you broadly, your surprise victory has some progressive Democrats saying, boy, you may have determined the model for the Democratic Party nationally in this moment. Do you think your campaign represents the playbook for how to win in the Trump era for Democrats?
I think it showcases a new approach to politics in our city, and it's for others to decide across our country. Ultimately, what we wanted to do from the very beginning of this race was change our political instinct from lecturing to listening. And after the presidential election, where we saw New York be the state in the nation with the largest swing towards Donald Trump, 11.5 points, and we saw that swing took place far from the caricatures of Trump voters, I went to those hearts of immigrant New York City that were the fulcrum of those swings, Hillside Avenue in Queens, Fordham Road in the Bronx, and I asked Democrats, who did you vote for and why? And I heard from them again and again, I voted for Donald Trump because I could afford things that are now out of my reach today. And ultimately, when I asked them what would it take to bring you back to the Democratic Party, they said a relentless focus on an economic agenda. And that's the campaign that we built.
Do you think that your apparent victory is a sign that there is an appetite for young progressives like a Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to run for president in 2028?
It's an honor to be endorsed by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and to have been represented by her for so many years, because she's showcased so much of what we're trying to do in this campaign. The ability to not only stand up and fight, but also to win. And ultimately, what people want to see is someone who doesn't just believe in something, but can deliver on those things. And now, especially more than ever, we need to be a party that's not just against Donald Trump, but also for something. And our campaign was for working people, for bringing dignity back into those lives. And that's what the Congresswoman has showed time and again.
I can't let you go without doing a little bit of local politics.
Please.
So Mayor Eric Adams already in the general election as an independent candidate. We're waiting to see if Andrew Cuomo officially throws his hat into the ring. Do you think you can win if the two of them are in the race? Can you beat both of them?
Absolutely. We can beat anyone that's in this race, because what we've shown is that this is a campaign that has the support of more than 400,000 New Yorkers. In the first round of Tuesday night, we got more votes than Eric Adams did by the last round of 2021. And ultimately, it's a referendum on how he made this city so unaffordable. For too long, politicians have pretended to simply be bystanders to a cost of living crisis. They've actually exacerbated it. And our vision is one that will respond to it and make this a city affordable for every New Yorker.
I will say this much. He doesn't get jammed up with the anti-Semitism shit, which is awesome. I will, like, one of the biggest problems with Corbyn in the UK, which is a very different media environment, much more hostile, and a very different approach to anti-Semitism smears, wasn't necessarily that Corbyn constantly found himself having to answer these questions. All of the media time wasted on talking about how anti-Semitic Jeremy Corbyn was, in the same exact way, by the way. Very different era, too. Very different era, for the record. I think if they try to do that shit to Jeremy Corbyn right now, his popularity would skyrocket. Because, again, we're talking post-October 7 now. We're talking 20 months of Israel's genocide. Obviously, attitudes have shifted dramatically, right? But the media did this to Jeremy Corbyn all the time. And one of the biggest issues that I saw was not necessarily how scared people were of his anti-Semitism. It was more so that that was the only thing he talked about. He was constantly on the defensive. Right? and having to only talk about how he doesn't hate Jews. Okay? This is precisely how they effectively destroyed any kind of opportunity Jeremy Corbyn would have had on the primary stage, on the main stage, in talking about his policies. Zohran deflects away when asked these like incredibly racist questions, right? You as a Muslim, very scary. Use Muslim words, also scary, scares me, right? Muslim words scare me. Intifada seems like a Muslim word. You say it's Arabic, I say Arabs are Muslim. Sure, he talks about it briefly when that question comes up, and it comes up all too much, in my opinion. But he very quickly turns around and talks about the things that he wants to do for New York. That's good. That's really good. This way, the campaign is not jammed up by how much Zohran loves Israel. Does he sufficiently love Israel or not? Is he going to defend Israel personally? Is he going to join the IDF? Is he not going to join the IDF? If he doesn't join the IDF, is this anti-Semitic? What is this? Even if he's winning the argument, it's better to be cold-headed, which is harder when you're ideologically committed.